I never wanted to be that guy, the one who snoops, the one who suspects. But here I am, sitting in front of my laptop, watching a video I wish I could erase from my memory. It all started with something so small, so seemingly innocent, that I almost brushed it off. Allison and I have been married for over 20 years. I'm 51 now, and she's 43. We have 2 kids. Our son, Kyle, is 19, and our daughter, Emma, just turned 11. Life has a way of settling into a rhythm after so long, doesn't it? You get comfortable. You stop questioning things. At least, that's what I thought. It was a Saturday morning when I noticed it. Something off about Allison. She was unusually distracted, more so than her usual busy mom self. She kept checking her phone, her thumb scrolling quickly, lips twitching into brief, almost involuntary smiles. Normally, I wouldn't give it a second thought, but something about that morning felt wrong. Who's making you smile like that? I asked playfully, trying to sound casual. She looked up, startled, like a kid caught sneaking cookies before dinner. What? Oh, just a work thing, she said, too quickly. Work thing. Allison worked part-time at a local interior design firm. She loved the job. Meeting clients, sprucing up homes, turning drab spaces into cozy sanctuaries. But it wasn't exactly the type of job that led to urgent Saturday morning messages. Still, I didn't push. I trusted her. At least, I thought I did. Later that evening, as we sat watching TV, she excused herself to the bedroom, phone in hand. She said something about feeling tired. I stayed on the couch, staring at the muted TV screen, my mind drifting back to that smile. That little smile had lodged itself in my brain like a splinter. I couldn't shake it. I told myself to let it go. Don't be paranoid. But the next morning, while Allison was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced at it, just a reflex, I told myself. But when I saw the name on the screen, my stomach dropped. Ethan. I didn't know any Ethan. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone. I knew I shouldn't, but curiosity, or maybe something deeper, drove me to unlock it. The last message read, "Can't wait to see you again." I felt the world tilt beneath me. I sat there, staring at the screen, heart pounding in my chest. Can't wait to see you again. The words echoed in my mind. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe Ethan was a client. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe, but no. That message wasn't work-related. It had a different tone, something more personal. The shower shut off, jolting me out of my daze. My hands fumbled to put the phone back, locking it and placing it exactly where she had left it. I bolted out of the bedroom, heart hammering in my chest. I felt like a criminal in my own home. Allison came out minutes later, wrapped in a towel, humming to herself. She didn't notice me watching her from the hallway. Her smile was easy, her steps light. Was she thinking about him? Was she planning their next meeting? I couldn't ask her, not yet. I needed more. The next day, I told her I had an appointment in town. Instead, I drove to an electronics store and bought a small hidden camera and a voice recorder. I hated myself for doing it. I felt dirty, like I was betraying her trust. But wasn't she betraying mine? That night, I waited until Allison was asleep to set up the camera. I placed it on top of the bookshelf in our bedroom, disguised among the decorative books and trinkets. It had a wide angle, perfectly covering the bed. I also slipped the voice recorder into her purse, hidden beneath her wallet. The next morning, Allison kissed me on the cheek before leaving for work. "Love you," she said casually, like she always did. "Love you too," I replied, though the words felt hollow. Once she was gone, I checked the camera feed from my laptop. It showed a clear view of our room, empty now, but ready to capture anything suspicious. Hours passed, and I distracted myself with chores and work calls, trying to push the gnawing anxiety away. Around noon, her purse buzzed from the kitchen counter. The voice recorder would capture it. I waited until it was safe to retrieve it, heart pounding as I listened to the playback. It started with mundane sounds, keys jingling, footsteps on pavement. Then came the call. "Hey, Ethan," Allison's voice. I froze. "Yeah, it's safe to talk now. Sam's at home, but he's working." My stomach twisted. "So, Thursday?" she continued, her voice soft, flirty. "I can't wait either." There was a pause, then a soft laugh. "I'll wear the dress you like." I stopped the recording, while rising in my throat. Thursday, 2 days from now. I slammed the laptop shut, pacing the room, my thoughts racing. I needed to see it for myself, to catch her in the act. That evening, Allison was her usual self, cooking dinner, laughing with the kids, sitting beside me on the couch. But all I could see was the woman from the recording, making plans to meet another man. When she leaned her head on my shoulder, I sat stiff, cold. I couldn't look at her the same way. Thursday. I would wait until Thursday, and I would record it all. I spent the next day spiraling between anger and heartbreak. Every time I looked at Allison, I saw her through a new lens, a stranger disguised as my wife. She moved through the house like everything was normal. She kissed me goodbye before heading out to work, smiled at the kids, and even sent me a text around noon, "Hope you're having a good day." The nerve. I had to keep reminding myself that I was the only one who knew the truth. I couldn't let my emotions show, not yet. Thursday was tomorrow, and I was ready. I had my hidden camera, the voice recorder, and a growing resolve to see this through. But what happened next wasn't something I expected. It was late Wednesday afternoon when my phone buzzed. Allison was calling. "Hey," I answered, trying to sound casual. "Hey, babe." Her voice was sweet, a little nervous. "So, I've been thinking. You've been working so hard lately. How about we do something different tonight?" I blinked. Different? I was thinking we could book a hotel room. A hotel? For us? I asked, incredulous. "Yes, for us," she laughed softly, like I was being silly. "We haven't had a night alone in forever. Just the two of us. No kids. No distractions." Her suggestion caught me completely off guard. I hadn't seen this coming. My mind raced, trying to piece together her motives. Was this some kind of guilt-driven gesture? Or was it an alibi, something to cover her tracks before she met up with Ethan tomorrow? "Where would we go?" I asked, playing along. "There's this place downtown," she said quickly, like she'd already thought it through. "The Hamilton. I've seen it online. It looks cozy. I'll make the booking, okay?" I agreed, feeling the weight of the situation shift. I had planned to catch her cheating tomorrow, but now she was inviting me out tonight, to a hotel. It was strange. Too strange to be a coincidence. After we hung up, I checked my hidden camera footage from the past few days. Nothing incriminating had appeared. No signs of Ethan coming to our house. Allison hadn't made any suspicious calls since the one I'd recorded on Monday. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe she wasn't seeing him in person yet, just planning to. That evening, Allison packed an overnight bag with excitement I hadn't seen in a long time. She even asked if I wanted her to wear that black dress I liked, the one she hadn't worn in years. I nodded, trying to play the part of the doting husband. We checked into the Hamilton around 7 p.m. It was a boutique hotel, elegant but intimate. As we stepped into the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was all part of a bigger plan. Hers, not mine. She poured us both a glass of wine, her eyes sparkling. "I'm really glad we're doing this," she said softly, leaning in to kiss me. And for a moment, I believed her. Later that night, as we lay in bed, Allison's phone buzzed on the nightstand. I tensed, waiting for her to pick it up, but she didn't. Instead, she turned toward me, her hand slipping over my chest. "Let's not check our phones tonight," she whispered. I nodded, pretending not to care. But inside, I was screaming. Tomorrow, I would check that phone. Tomorrow, I would know everything. I woke up in the hotel bed with Allison curled up next to me, her arm draped over my chest. Her breathing was soft and steady, like she didn't have a care in the world. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. The night before had been surreal. Allison had been warm, affectionate, like the woman I'd married. She hadn't seemed distracted or distant, not even for a second. She laughed at my jokes, kissed me like she meant it, and fell asleep in my arms. But her phone, it had buzzed late at night, twice. I gently slipped out from under her arm, careful not to wake her. The bedside clock read 6:42 a.m. The early morning light seeped in through the curtains, casting a faint glow on the room. Allison shifted slightly, but didn't wake. Her phone was still on the nightstand. I knew I shouldn't. I knew this was a line I hadn't crossed yet, going through her actual messages, but the voice recorder had told me enough. And now, with her phone so close, I couldn't resist. I picked it up, my heart thudding in my chest. The screen lit up, revealing 2 unread texts from a contact saved as E. Can't wait for tonight. Same place. I've been thinking about you all week. My stomach clenched. Tonight. He thought they were meeting tonight, Thursday. Allison stirred, mumbling something in her sleep. I quickly set the phone back down and moved to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I leaned against the sink, my hands gripping the edge tightly. My heart was racing, my thoughts a whirlwind. She wasn't planning to meet Ethan yesterday. She was planning to meet him tonight. And I had just spent the night with her in the very hotel where she was likely planning to meet him. A horrible thought struck me. What if she'd booked this hotel because it was already familiar to her? What if she and Ethan had been here before? I turned on the faucet, splashing cold water on my face. The betrayal I felt was so deep it burned. I couldn't let her know I'd seen those messages. Not yet. When I came out of the bathroom, Allison was awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone. Her expression was unreadable, calm, detached. She looked up and smiled at me. Good morning. Morning, I replied, forcing a smile. She stood and stretched. I'll grab a quick shower before we head out. You want to grab breakfast downstairs? Sure, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. As she disappeared into the bathroom, her phone buzzed again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed it and opened the message. 10 p.m. at the Hamilton. I'll be waiting. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling. He knew. He knew she'd been here last night. Allison's voice broke my trance. Sam? I forgot my brush. Can you grab it from my bag? I put the phone back quickly and grabbed the brush from her overnight bag. As I handed it to her through the bathroom door, she smiled at me again, sweet as ever. Thanks, babe. I wanted to scream. I needed a plan. I couldn't just wait for tonight. I needed to catch her in the act. And this hotel, this very room, was where it would all happen. And I would be ready. We left the hotel that morning like any other couple on a little getaway. Allison held my hand as we walked out, smiled at me as we passed the front desk, and chatted about weekend plans during the drive home. She seemed lighter, happier. It made me sick. All I could think about was that message, 10 p.m. at the Hamilton. I'll be waiting. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I couldn't. If I played my cards too soon, she'd deny everything. No, I needed proof. Real proof. Back home, Allison slipped back into our routine with ease. She hugged Emma when she got home from school and teased Kyle about his messy hair. She was the perfect mom, the perfect wife. But I knew better now. I needed to figure out how she planned to pull this off. She hadn't mentioned going out tonight, but she would have to soon. She couldn't just vanish without an excuse. I watched her carefully, waiting for the moment she'd drop her cover story. It came just before dinner. I forgot to tell you, she said casually as she set the table. I need to run out tonight for a work thing. It's a client meeting. It came up last minute. I kept my expression neutral. A client meeting? At night? Yeah, she said, glancing at her phone briefly. Some VIP client wants a consultation before their dinner party this weekend. Joy asked me to handle it. Her boss. Right. It sounded plausible enough. But the way she avoided my eyes when she said it told me everything I needed to know. How late do you think you'll be? I asked, trying to sound indifferent. Probably not too late. Maybe around 11? She replied, setting down the plates. I'll text you when I'm heading home. I nodded. Sure. I'll handle things here. Inside, I was boiling. I'd heard this exact tone before. The two casual excuses, the vague timelines. It was the same voice she used when talking to him. After dinner, Allison kissed the kids goodnight, grabbed her purse, and headed out the door without a second glance. I waited until her car disappeared down the street before grabbing my own keys. I wasn't going to follow her directly. I wasn't stupid. I already knew where she was going. Instead, I drove to the Hamilton Hotel and parked a block away. I walked in through the side entrance, avoiding the front desk. The place was quiet, dimly lit, with soft jazz playing through the speakers. I had no idea which room they'd be in, but I knew they'd be meeting in the bar first. I slipped into a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance. The clock on the wall read 9:45 p.m. At exactly 9:58, Allison walked in. She wasn't wearing the same casual outfit she'd left the house in. She had changed into the black dress, the one she knew I loved. The same one she had packed for our night here. My stomach turned. She scanned the bar, her eyes searching. It didn't take long. A man stood up from a table near the back, a tall, confident man in his early 40s. He smiled at her, and she smiled back. I recognized him from photos I'd seen on Allison's company website. Ethan. They hugged. Not a friendly, professional hug. A lingering, intimate embrace. Her hand lingered on his chest as they pulled apart. He whispered something in her ear, making her laugh softly. I clenched my fists under the table. Every instinct screamed at me to storm over and confront them, but I stayed put. I needed more. They ordered drinks and sat down, talking quietly. I strained to hear, but the distance made it impossible. After about 20 minutes, they both stood, Allison laughing as Ethan took her hand and led her toward the elevator. I followed at a distance, keeping to the shadows. My heart pounded as they stepped into the elevator together. The doors closed, and I saw Allison lean in to kiss him just before they disappeared from view. My hand shook as I pulled out my phone and called the front desk. "Hi, I'm supposed to meet my wife in room 314, I said, keeping my voice steady. "Could you remind me of the room number? I forgot to write it down." "Room 314, sir," the receptionist confirmed. "Would you like me to call up for you?" "No, that's okay," I said. "I'll head up." I ended the call and stared at the elevator doors. Room 314. This was it. I was going to catch them. I stood outside room 314, my heart racing like it might burst out of my chest. My fists clenched at my sides, every muscle in my body screaming at me to kick the door down and end this nightmare. But I couldn't move. Not yet. I needed more than anger. I needed proof. I pulled out my phone, shaking as I adjusted the camera to record. My thumb hovered over the screen for a moment, trembling with the weight of what I was about to do. Then I hit record. There was laughter behind the door, a soft, intimate sound that made my stomach turn. Allison's voice drifted through, light and teasing, the way she used to sound with me. I leaned closer, listening. The voices were muffled, but I caught enough to confirm what I already knew. "I missed you," Ethan said. "I missed you too," Allison whispered. My grip on the phone tightened. This wasn't just some casual fling. There was emotion in her voice, care, affection. This was something deeper. I glanced up and down the hallway. It was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. No footsteps, no housekeepers, just me, standing outside the room where my wife was with another man. Suddenly, I heard movement, footsteps approaching the door. I stepped back, pressing myself into the shadows as the door opened slightly. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't see me. "Hold on, let me grab the do not disturb sign," Allison said, giggling. I watched as her hand reached out to hang the sign on the doorknob. The door closed again, the lock clicking into place. I swallowed hard, the reality crashing down on me. She had planned this. She was making sure they wouldn't be interrupted. They were about to sleep together in that room. After everything we shared in this same hotel just last night, I forced myself to think. I couldn't barge in. I needed solid evidence if I was going to confront her and protect my kids. My mind raced through the possibilities. Then it hit me. The Hamilton had security cameras. The hallways, the lobby, even the elevators, all recorded. I turned and headed back to the lobby, my steps steady despite the storm brewing inside me. The receptionist glanced up as I approached, giving me a polite smile. "Can I help you, sir?" "Yes," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I need to report something unusual in room 314. Her brows furrowed. "Unusual?" I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. "I think someone is using that room for, well, illicit purposes. I saw 2 people go in, and I'm not sure they're supposed to be there." The receptionist's eyes widened. "Oh, I see. We take these matters very seriously. Let me notify security." I nodded, heart pounding as she made the call. Now it was a waiting game. Within minutes, a security guard arrived, his expression serious as he listened to the receptionist's explanation. He glanced at me, then at the screen displaying the hallway feeds. "There's room 314, the guard said, pointing to the monitor. "We can see if anyone left." I watched as the footage rewound. There they were, Allison and Ethan, stepping off the elevator, hand in hand. They walked straight to room 314, and I watched her unlock the door with practiced ease. "Are you sure they're not guests?" the guard asked. "Positive," I said, my voice steady. "That's my wife." The guard's eyes softened with understanding. "Do you want to go up there, or should we handle it?" I clenched my fists, torn between rage and self-control. "No," I said finally. "I'll go." It was time. This was the moment that would change everything. As I walked back toward the elevator, my legs felt like lead. Each step was heavier than the last. My mind was spinning with a million thoughts. Memories of Allison laughing at our wedding, holding our children for the first time, kissing me goodnight. How did we get here? How did I miss this? But none of that mattered now. What mattered was the door to room 314. I stepped into the elevator and hit the button for the third floor. The doors closed with a soft thud, and I stared at my reflection in the mirrored walls. My face looked hollow, my eyes dark and sunken. I barely recognized myself. The elevator dinged, and the doors slid open. The hallway stretched out in front of me, quiet and empty. I walked slowly, my footsteps muffled by the carpet. Room 314 loomed ahead like a predator waiting to strike. When I reached the door, I stopped. Inside, I could hear them. The muffled sound of voices, laughter, and movement. My hand hovered over the door handle, but I forced myself to stay still. Not yet. Instead, I took out my phone and opened the recording app. I hit record and slipped the phone into my shirt pocket, the camera peeking out just enough to catch everything. I needed to be smart. I needed proof. Taking a deep breath, I knocked. The voices inside went quiet. I knocked again, harder this time. A moment later, the door opened a crack. Ethan stood there, shirtless, his hair messy. His eyes widened in surprise when he saw me. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice wary. I stared at him for a long moment, my blood boiling. But I kept my voice calm. "Yeah, you can open the door and let me in." He blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, but—" Before he could finish, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Allison was sitting on the bed, wearing that black dress. Her eyes met mine, and for a split second, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then she composed herself, standing up slowly, smoothing the fabric of her dress. "Sam," she said softly, "what are you doing here?" I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound that echoed off the walls. "What am I doing here? That's a good question. I could ask you the same thing." Ethan stepped forward, his hands raised defensively. "Look, I don't know who you are, but you need to leave." I turned to him, my gaze cold. "You don't know who I am?" I took a step closer, my voice low and steady. "I'm her husband." Ethan's face went pale. Allison's composure cracked. "Sam, please. Let's talk about this. Not here." I shook my head. "No. We're talking about it right here. Right now. I want to hear it from you. How long?" She hesitated, glancing at Ethan. "Sam, how long?" My voice was a growl now, low and dangerous. Allison swallowed hard. "A few months." I laughed again, a sharp, bitter sound. "A few months. Wow. And all that time, you just kept coming home, kissing our kids goodnight, lying to my face." Tears welled up in her eyes. "It wasn't like that. Don't," I snapped, cutting her off. "Don't you dare tell me it wasn't like that. I saw the messages. I heard the phone calls. I know everything." Ethan took a step forward. "Look, man, I didn't know." I turned on him, my voice sharp. "Didn't know what? That she was married? That she had kids? Don't lie to me." He shrank back, guilt written all over his face. Allison stepped between us, her hands outstretched. "Sam, please. Let's not do this here. Let's go home and talk." I shook my head, disgusted. "No, we're not going home. You made sure of that when you walked into this room." The weight of the moment pressed down on all of us. The silence was deafening. Finally, I pulled my phone from my pocket and stopped the recording. I stared at Allison for a long moment, letting the betrayal sink in. Then, without another word, I turned and walked out the door. I walked out of that hotel room with my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. The rage simmered just beneath my skin, but I held it back. I needed to keep my head clear. There was too much at stake. My kids, my dignity, my future. I made it to the car before I realized I was shaking. I sat behind the wheel, gripping the steering wheel with both hands, trying to steady myself. My mind kept replaying the look on Allison's face when she saw me. That split second when she froze. The guilt, the shame, and something else. Relief? Was she relieved that it was finally out in the open? The video was still on my phone. I pulled it up, my thumb hovering over the play button. Part of me didn't want to see it again, but another part couldn't help it. I needed to remind myself that this was real, that the woman I had loved for over 2 decades had done this to me. I hit play. The screen showed the door to room 314 opening, Ethan's smug, shirtless face appearing. Then me, stepping inside. Allison's voice floated through the speakers, calm at first, trying to keep control of the situation. My own voice sounded foreign to me. Angry, betrayed, desperate. I watched it all unfold again, unable to look away. There she was, standing by the bed in that black dress, her hands smoothing the fabric nervously, her eyes darting between Ethan and me. I zoomed in on her face, looking for any trace of regret, any flicker of remorse. But all I saw was fear, fear of being caught, not fear of losing me. I watched the way she moved toward Ethan when she thought I was about to lose my temper, the way her body instinctively leaned toward him for protection, not me. My stomach turned. I locked my phone and tossed it onto the passenger seat, as if putting it away could erase what I'd seen. But it didn't. The images were burned into my brain. I drove aimlessly for a while, not ready to go home, not ready to face what came next. But I knew I had to do something. I had proof now, proof that would hold up in court if it came to that. I could confront her at home, make her confess in front of the kids. But no, I couldn't drag them into this. Not yet. Instead, I pulled into a gas station parking lot and opened my phone again. I rewatched the video, this time taking in every detail. The way she looked at Ethan, the way he looked at her, the way they both froze when I said the words, "I'm her husband." I hit replay, and again, and again. Each time, it felt like a fresh stab to the heart. But I couldn't stop. Why couldn't I stop? Because this video was no longer just evidence. It was a moment frozen in time. The moment my entire life shattered. I couldn't stop watching because part of me still couldn't believe it. I was trying to make sense of it, to find some detail that would change the story. But it never did. It always ended the same way, with me walking out, leaving her behind. Eventually, my phone buzzed with a message. I glanced at the screen. "Allison, we need to talk. Please, come home." My jaw tightened. The audacity. She wanted to talk now? After everything? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back a single word. "Me? No." She replied instantly. "Allison, Sam, please. I'll explain everything." Explain? What was there to explain? I'd seen it with my own eyes. I had it on video. I closed my phone and leaned back in the driver's seat, staring out at the dark street. The gas station lights flickered, casting long shadows on the pavement. My mind kept replaying the video in my head, like a film stuck on loop. I thought about my kids, Kyle and Emma. What would this do to them? How would they see their mother after this? Would they ever trust her again? Would I ever trust anyone again? A knock on my window startled me. I turned to see a gas station attendant peering in, concern etched on his face. "You okay, buddy?" he asked, his voice muffled through the glass. I nodded slowly, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just thinking." He nodded back, giving me a sympathetic look before walking away. I picked up my phone again, opened the video one more time, and hit play. "Sam," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We need to talk." I stared at her, saying nothing. "I know you're angry. I know I've hurt you." Her eyes were glassy with tears. "But please, can we sit down, Anne?" I cut her off. "I don't want to hear excuses. I want to know why." Her lip trembled. I didn't plan for this to happen. That's not an answer. My voice was cold, steady. Why, Allison? After everything we've been through, our life, our kids, you throw it away for him? She wiped her eyes. It wasn't about him. It was about me. I felt invisible, Sam. Like I was just a mom, a wife, a person who didn't matter anymore. I clenched my jaw. So your solution was to cheat? I was wrong, she whispered. I know that now. But it wasn't about love. It wasn't about you. It was about feeling wanted. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted you. I still wanted you, Allison. But you couldn't see that, could you? You were too busy sneaking around behind my back. She took a shaky step toward me. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But I love you, Sam. I love our family. I don't want to lose it. I shook my head slowly. Love? You love me? You don't destroy someone you love. Her tears fell freely now. I don't know how to fix this, but I'm willing to try. I'll do anything. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. I pulled out my phone and opened the video. Do you know what I've been watching all night? Her face paled as she saw herself on the screen, standing in that hotel room with Ethan. The look of guilt in her eyes returned. Sam, please. I hit play. Her voice echoed through the room. I missed you. She covered her mouth, sobbing. Stop, please. I stopped the video and looked her in the eyes. I have proof. I could take this to court. I could take everything. Her sobs grew louder. You're right. You could. And I would deserve it. Silence fell between us. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the clock ticking on the wall. This was the moment. The moment I had to decide if I would burn our life to the ground or try to salvage what was left. Then a small voice broke the silence. Dad? I turned to see Emma standing at the top of the stairs, clutching her stuffed bear. Her eyes were wide with worry. Why are you and Mom yelling? Allison gasped softly, wiping her tears. Emma, sweetheart, go back to bed. But Emma didn't move. Are you guys getting a divorce? The word hung in the air like a blade, cutting through everything. Allison looked at me, pleading silently. I looked at Emma, my little girl, who deserved so much better than this. No, I said quietly. We're not getting a divorce. Allison's breath hitched, but I wasn't finished. I knelt down and opened my arms. Emma ran to me, burying her face in my chest. We're going to be okay, I whispered. I promise. As I held her, I met Allison's gaze over Emma's shoulder. The pain in her eyes was raw, but there was something else, too. Hope? Would I forgive her? I didn't know. Trust was shattered, and love felt distant. But for Emma and Kyle, I wasn't ready to tear everything apart. Not yet. Allison spoke softly. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for giving us a chance. I didn't answer. Instead, I carried Emma back to bed, tucking her in gently. When I returned to the living room, Allison was still there, waiting. We have a long way to go, I said. But if you ever lie to me again, if you so much as think about seeing him, I'm done. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I won't. I swear. The house was silent again as I went upstairs to our bedroom. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Allison quietly slip in beside me. The distance between us felt like a canyon. I didn't sleep that night, but the video? I never watched it again.